Hello, welcome back to my channel. In this video I will show you some exciting new features of the just released Korg Wavestate Sample Import and the Wavestate Editor features. It was released yesterday and this morning I tried to create some sounds in other synths and transfer those sounds to my Wavestate to create the ultimate ambient synth. Now that Korg made it possible to import your own material, you can transfer the Wavestate into anything you want. And even better, you can add all the wave sequencing possibilities to your own samples. In my opinion, this synth has become a sound designer stream now. I'm in the middle of transferring some of the sounds I've programmed in other synths, and I think it would be nice to let you see how easy it is to add your own material to the Wavestate and what process I use now. Let me start by showing one of the user samples I just created, which I transferred to the Wavestate for a new performance. It's a granular type of pad sound with lots of movement to it, and it's called QR Granular Ambient Part. So let's start. So it's a small example, but basically I created this with one of the VSTIs I use in Ableton and sampled that, a few notes of that, and transferred that to the Korg Wavestate and used that one in the Wavestate editor, which this is the new editor by the way, to create this new sound. And this is a rather straightforward sound now. When you select a sample in your own user folder, you will find your own created multi-samples. And you can do anything you want. For instance, if I want to, in the editor, for instance, if I want to add some movement to this sample, I can set the cutoff back, add some LFO to it, add a tempo sync in the LFO tab, set it to a whole beat, and create that pattern over 4 beats, for instance. And now you see the yellow marker, what the LFO does, and you can tailor it, less intensity, so that it doesn't use that much movement. So lots of possibilities to use to do all kind of nice things with your own samples. For this performance I have an idea to add a lead sound to it, and for this tutorial I will show you how easy it is to create a new sound and to add it to your Korg Wavestate, and what you have to do to make that process happen. I'm using Ableton for this. Ableton is a DHW. You can also use Cubase or Logic or anything you want. And I've used the Arturia Jup-8 plugin to create a new sound I want to sample. It sounds like this. Here. So a perfect sound to add on top of that other pad sound I just created to create a new performance atmosphere. So I'm going to transfer this to a new multi-sample, which we can use in the Korg Wavestate. Let's start to the process of sampling this specific lead. It's called QR Ambient Lead. And we are going to load that in my case, in the SampleRobot program. And the SampleRobot program is something that does the complete sampling for me, including the setting the loop point, just to save a lot of time. If you don't have SampleRobot, which I can imagine, then you can do the same process by just recording one note for each octave in your DHW and transfer that manually and setting the loop points manually. So how do you do that? Well, we have to say to the program that we want to use the Arturia Jup-8. So we have to load that VST, and that's this one. Let's load it and set it over here right now. And let's create a new project. We can do that with the project wizard. We are going to do some VST plugin recording, and we are going to call it QR ambient lead. And let's add GP8 behind it. Find a folder where you want to store the project. I have a specific folder for that. Wavestate, QR ambient lead GP8. Open it, select the folder. The sample format, well, I use 48 kilohertz 16-bit files. The Wavestate understands that, so we can do that. And I always sample 76 keys so that we can use some more octaves than we have available on the Korg Wavestate. I want one velocity layer. The Korg Wavestate only supports one velocity layer, which isn't a problem because we are going to create our own wave sequences anyway. So and the program is done through synthesizer design, sound design. So fine by me. And I don't need that many samples because well, we only have 4 gigabytes, and I want to create lots of samples. So that's the reason why we don't want to use too many samples, and you won't hear it in the end result. I set a node length of 10. Well, the node length is important. In this case, I know that the sound I created has a specific attack phase, and that around 6 seconds the low points starts in a sample for that specific sound I created. When I would create raw samples, then 2.5 seconds is more than enough. But in this case, I use 10-second samples for that. I want the loops automatically created, and this is a lead sound. Well, the intermediate algorithm is good enough for this, and at least 50% of the sample length should be played before he starts to determine where the loop starts. So I've set up my complete project. The only thing I have to do is to say to the Jup-8 which sound I want to sample. So let's open the editor. Check now. Now is the button enabled. And let's create my just saved preset. It's done. We're ready and set to go. So here's the white notes are going to be sampled for me. So let's do that. Create a project, start recording. Now there it goes. It doesn't take long because it does it all offline because it's a VST, so he doesn't have to record in real time. So it's almost done now, 28%, 24%. For this sample, the loop detection is a little bit harder, obviously. Now, glad he does it and not me. So, and we're done. Now, for every sample, you can see it starts. It determines where the node starts, where the loop points, the optimum loop point is, the crossfading for the loops, and where the loop out point is, and the node out. So you can visually check every note, and when you play a note on the keyboard, it's perfect. You don't hear any loop points, and you can obviously modify things if you want, but this program is so good that you don't need that. So we're done. That's all you have to do. Save selected projects and export the selected project. In this case, I can export it to any synth like Contact, my Korg PA4X, or my Yamaha Genos, or the Korg Kronos, whatever. Choose anything you want, but we want WAV files. The Wavestate works with the WAV files, and we say we have created 48 kilohertz 16 bits samples. We leave this at a default, and we set export to WAV files. Use a long default naming convention and export the samples to this folder. Export it, and now we're done. That's all you have to do, and we don't need SampleRobot anymore because we are going to start now the sample editor of Korg. So we have a bank we are working with, and I have two sounds now in this bank, the air piano and the granular ambient path, which you just heard. So we are going to add this new sound we just created to this bank. Now you have to say QR ambient beat Jup-8. I've created it. It's a lead sound. There's that category over here. Lead sound from the Jup-8. Okay, we've filled all the information. We only have to add our multi-samples, import the wave files. Let's go to the lead sound. And we are going to use this set of created samples. Well, it automatically maps the samples we've created. We can test them. So we have to say this is an E0 sample, that the original key is E0. Doesn't really recognize this yet. I have no idea why. I boost the sample 12 dB because I like loud samples to work with. This is the E1 sample, the E2 sample, oh, not that good with my mouse, E3, E4, well, how hard could it be? But for me it's hard. E5. And E6, that's all. Okay, the boost. Visually check if it actually starts at the beginning of the sample. That's important. It all does that. Okay, and we're done. Everything is set up correctly. If you have to set up your own loop points and it isn't included in the WAV file definition, then you can set them here by dragging your mouse with the left button clicked. But basically this is all you have to do. So when we play it now, click at the beginning is intentional. Normally I would not use that in the original project, but I like my samples percussive because the click at the beginning, we are going to fade that out in the performance with the attack parameter of the amp envelope. So well, perfect. Save the multisample. You need to do that before you can send it to the Korg Wavestate. I've created a new folder for my Korg Multisample. You can see that it's a Korg Multisample, and we can add that multisample to the bank now. And because we did it in one process, it's over here. So here is that new sound, and the only thing we have to do now is to send it to the Korg Wavestate by clicking this button. I save the bank so that when I reopen it, it knows that this is the set we want to use. Now send bank. It's sending the samples to the synth. And now we're done. So that's basically all you have to do. It's now in our Wavestate. So now that we have created our multi-sample pack, let's create a new layer where we are going to load the new sample we just created. Let's use layer B for that, and click on the sample, and in your user area the new ambient lead will be there. We don't need all those second steps for this. We only want to use that new multi-sample. We set the timing step to gate because we only want to use this one sample, and we know that there's a click at the start, a percussive click of this sound, and for this sound I want a slowly layered lead sample with a little bit release. 2 seconds, it's more than enough. 1 second envelope. So let's try how this sounds now. I really like it. It sounds fantastic, in my opinion. So let's lower the volume. It's a little bit loud. And let's add the other layer, and we are going to say to the layers, hey, in the key zones we want the second layer only from specific ranges. So in the top layer we will play the notes. So A3, I think. It's a little bit of a gamble. And we will stop this at two. So yeah, perfect. Okay, and we are going to set this an octave higher, layer 1. Nice. And layer B also 1 octave lower. So with a few in a few steps we've created our own source material to create a new starting point for a new great performance. In this case the granular path in the lower part and the lead in the upper parts from the dinger, so we can play anything we want now. As you hear, it has a lot of character you don't hear in the other samples on the Wavestate. It's a totally different sound now, so you can tailor the Wavestate now completely to your own ideas. And of course this performance is far from finished. I have to do a lot of sound design in the editor to create the ultimate performance patch I have in my head. But the starting point is already really good, and you can add anything you want this way and create your own Wavestate sounds. So hopefully this was helpful. I would say try it for yourself, and let's see what you can come up with. I'm curious. Bye for now.